you had another hearing this week at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Okay, so we had the first hearing earlier this week where Mike Pompeo brazenly admitted to Lindsey Graham that they're stealing the oil in Syria. But this one was focused more on Venezuela and the United States policy in regards to Maduro. So I'm gonna play the clip to you and comment as we go along, okay?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I feel like it's Groundhog Day in this committee. We've been told by the administration, frankly, multiple administrations for years, that Russia's support for Assad and Iran's support for Assad is tepid. It's fragile. It's just a matter of time before he falls. The truth of the matter is they were always willing to do more than we were in Syria to protect their interests, and that is likely the exact same case here in Venezuela. And so our policy has been misguided by fundamentally flawed assumptions from the beginning. And I have deep respect for both of you who are testifying before this committee, but we just have to be clear that our Venezuela policy over the last year and a half has been an unmitigated disaster. And if we aren't honest about that, then we can't self-correct. We have to admit that our big play, recognizing Guaido right out of the gate and then moving quickly to implement sanctions, just didn't work. It didn't. All it did was harden Russia and Cuba's play in Venezuela and allow Maduro to paint Guaido as an American patsy and allow.
Because he is. What do you mean paint him as an American patsy? He is. He's a puppet. You're trying to install a puppet government in Venezuela with some illegitimate hack. And did you notice, by the way, at the beginning, how he's like, oh, we keep hearing that, any minute, the government in Syria is going to fall, and here we are, and it's just not working. You'd think they would get the message that it's time to mind your fucking business, right? You think they get the message? No, of course not. Bloodthirsty, filthy capitalist pigs, imperialist bastards. Bloodthirsty imperialists, that's it.
Fundamentally flawed assumptions from the beginning. And I have deep respect for both of you who are testifying before this committee, but we just have to be clear that our Venezuela policy over the last year and a half has been an unmitigated disaster. And if we aren't honest about that, then we can't self-correct. We have to admit that our big play, recognizing Guaido right out of the gate and then moving quickly to implement sanctions, just didn't work. It didn't. All it did was harden Russia and Cuba's play in Venezuela and allow Maduro to paint Guaido as an American patsy. And a lot of us warned that this might happen.
Once again, man, do you see how his biggest issue is not that, wow, this is a sovereign country, we shouldn't be there, what we're doing is bad. No, that's not his. What's the word I'm looking for? Enlightenment? That's not the light bulb moment that he had. What he's angry about is that, oh, dang, man, we can't seem to get rid of these guys. We need to change our strategy and keep trying to violate their sovereignty and install a puppet government. That's what he's mad about. Unbelievable. Shameless. Absolutely shameless. Just in public. During a Senate hearing, testifying in public that the United States is committing acts of war against Syria, against Venezuela, trying to overthrow these governments. You have no business there. None. It's not how you're doing it that's the problem. You shouldn't be doing it.
We could have used the prospect of U.S. recognition or sanctions as leverage. We could have spent more time trying to get European allies and other partners on the same page. We could have spent more time trying to talk to or neutralize China and Russia early before we backed them into a corner from which they are not moving. They are not moving. But all we did was play all our cards on day one, and it didn't work. And it's just been an embarrassing mistake after mistake.
Oh my God, this guy just doesn't stop. Once again, he's not concerned that, oh, these sanctions that we imposed on Venezuela have crippled their infrastructure. Their hospitals are overflowing. They can't import medical equipment. They can't refine their oil. They can't feed their people. We're killing the civilian population. No. That's not his primary concern. His primary concern is that we use these sanctions too early. So killing people in Venezuela is fine for him, but they should have waited before doing that. Just, postpone it a bit. And he's annoyed. He's annoyed that China and Russia are actually standing up for the Venezuelan people. He's annoyed at that. Implicitly, what he's also angry about is that this shows that the balance of power is not 100% in favor of the United States. They're not able to get Russia and China to budge. The US is not able to have its way. That's an issue. When they want to overthrow another government and murder people, either through bombs or sanctions, why won't you let them do that?
Takes sense. First, we thought that getting Guaido to declare himself president would be enough to topple the regime. Then we thought putting aid on the border would be enough. Then we tried to sort of construct a kind of coup in April of last year, and it blew up in our face when all the generals that were supposed to break with Maduro decided to stick with him in the end. We undermined Norway's talks last summer, and then this March we released a transition framework that frankly is almost a carbon copy of the very one that was in front of the parties last year.
Did you notice the order in which he listed these items? The last thing he mentions is a transition framework, which out of everything that he's talked about, even though it's still illegitimate, the United States has no business interfering in Venezuela's politics, but nonetheless, even though that was the least violent of all the options, it came last. So they recognize Guaido as the president of Venezuela, even though no one in Venezuela has even heard of him. Then they tried sanctions, as if that's some kind of humanitarian tactic, right? He conveniently leaves out that it's killing people. And then he just brazenly admits about the coup. He just says, yeah, we sort of tried a kind of coup. What? No, it's a coup. Not a sort of kind of coup. It's a coup. Just say it. You spineless bitch. Just right there sitting there. Yeah, we tried this sort of kind of coup and it didn't work. You did what? That's an act of war. Let me break this down very simply to you. Do you see how the Democrats, even though they're full of it, they use this Russiagate nonsense, hysteria about, oh my God, Russian interference. Oh, they're tampering with our elections. And Donald Trump, oh, we can't have mail-in ballots because election integrity and security comes first. We have to protect our democracy. Oh, but it's okay for you to try and overthrow another government and interfere in their democracy and in their politics and in their governmental system and in their way of life and their culture. That's okay for you to do that? But God forbid you do that to someone else. God forbid someone else does that to you. Like, because you're so special, right? Bunch of white people. Your country is worth more, right? Your lives are worth more. Is that it? Unbelievable. They got no shame, man. Zero shame.
And now, after wasting all of this time, we are stuck with elections about to happen that, as we've talked about today, Guaido and the opposition refuse to enter. And then we are going to be in a position where we are recognizing someone as the leader of Venezuela who doesn't control the government, who doesn't run the military, and who doesn't even hold office. Now, we don't do this in other places, right? Nobody knows the name of the guy who finished second in the 2018 Russian presidential election. We don't recognize that person as the president of Russia, no matter how corrupt those elections are, because doing that makes us look weak and feckless if we can't actually do anything about it. And so I do think it's important to...
Oh my God. Do you think the penny finally dropped? Do you think the penny dropped? That this entire undertaking is not just a colossal failure, but wrong, morally, ethically? No? No. Of course not. It's unbelievable how he says it himself. This guy has no legitimacy. He's not in charge of the military. He doesn't hold office. He doesn't control the government or the police. He has no fucking business being dubbed the president of Venezuela. And yet you insist on making him the president of Venezuela. Oh my God. You just said no one cares about the guy who comes second. Then why the fuck are you having this whole conversation? Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Reality is staring him in the face, and he insists on disputing it. This is the sickness of bloodthirsty imperialism. They just can't stop. They can't stop.
To ask some questions about what comes next. And I might have time for only one, but I have two.
No. You're not listening. You're not listening. Nothing comes next. Go and mind your fucking business. The Democrats are outraged that someone dared to hack the DNC's emails. Yet you trying to organize a fucking coup in Venezuela is okay? I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to lose my mind. And yeah, this does make you look feckless. It does make you look like clueless, arrogant pieces of shit.
The first is this question of what do we do with Guaido? So you're saying we're going to recognize him because he is the former leader of the National Assembly. But you know there are, Mr. Abrams, there are contests for supremacy within the opposition. What happens if 6 months from today, someone else emerges as a more legitimate voice for the opposition than Juan Guaido? What criteria do we use to recognize someone new, or is Juan Guaido going to be the recognized leader of...
I got you, bro. I got you. I got the criteria, man. You ready for this? Are you ready? The president of Venezuela. The president of Venezuela is the president of Venezuela. Not the fucking leader of the National Assembly, okay? Not the fucking bodyguard of the Minister of Defense. Not the cook at the White House. Not Joe fucking Biden. Not Pamela Anderson. No, it's the president of Venezuela. That's the only criteria you need, okay? That's it. He's the president. The president of Venezuela is the president of Venezuela. That's it. It's not up to you to decide the legitimacy of another country's leader. You know why? Because that's another country, not yours. Okay? It's that simple. It's dead simple. Say no more.
Of Venezuela permanently, no matter how conditions change on the ground.
I think the situation with Guaido is unique because he is the president of the National Assembly. They're going to have a corrupt election now, which no one, I think, no democratic country is going to recognize. And that
so this scumbag, in case you don't know who this is, Elliott Abrams, this scumbag, he was in government since the Reagan administration. He's the one who lied to Congress about the Iran-Contra affair, and then George Bush Sr. pardoned him for it. And then they let him go back into government. Isn't that insane? Like, if you're an African American, you're a young black male, and you get arrested unjustly, and they They give you these sentence. They sentence you to years in jail and stamp your record with a felony. You can't take out a loan. You can't vote. You can't get a job. They screw your entire life because maybe you had some weed on you or something. But this guy lies about funding right-wing fucking paramilitaries in South America and selling weapons to Iran to do it behind the government's back. He gets pardoned and then he's allowed to go back in and work in the fucking government. Oh, and guess what? Breaking news. Elliott Abrams is named special representative for Iran. You can't make this shit up. You cannot make this shit up. You can't make this shit up. These people are the most corrupt, war hawk pieces of shit on the face of the planet. And they get away with anything. Right there, out in the open. They kill people. They embezzle and steal your taxpayer money. They run drug trafficking operations and organize coups in other countries, undermine people's right to self-determination, and then come here and act like they're interested in democracy. You piece of shit. You should be hanged as a fucking war criminal.
That corrupt election, that fraud is not going to change.
No. You're the only fucking fraud here. You're the only thing who's corrupt. Okay, this fucking demon, this demon has the audacity to talk about corruption and illegitimacy. Unbelievable.
Dore's status. And I don't think you'll find anybody in the opposition leadership who will claim otherwise. Also, I'd just like to say, Senator, that was not a vote. That was not the vote of confidence in the policy that I would have liked.
You dispute my premise. I will stipulate to that. I will stipulate to that. Okay. I think that that's a fallacy to suggest that no one is going to step forward and replace Guaido. And I think we have to sort of at least think through the criteria by which we may recognize somebody else. Let me ask a quick second question, which is this. Guaido's prerequisites for participating in the election did not include Maduro stepping down. And yet you've said as recently as a week ago that the only thing we want to talk to Maduro about.
Listen. Let me explain something to you. Guaido refusing to participate in the elections is his problem. You see, this is a tactic, an imperialist tactic that the US and other Western countries have been using for a while now. What they'll do is that they'll take the opposition, coordinate with them, and make out a deal where they tell the opposition not to participate in the elections on purpose. So that once Maduro wins or Morales wins or Bashar al-Assad or whoever they're trying to take down, once they win, because the opposition didn't even participate, they're like, oh, you see, illegitimate elections. Motherfucker, you didn't run. You didn't run. Could you imagine like Joe Biden just not running? And then once Trump wins, he's like, oh, you see, Trump rigged the election. Dude, you didn't fucking run. That's exactly what they're doing. This is how they skew the narrative. They skew reality. They lie to the world and try to influence public opinion and international bodies and sway their allies to their side and bring them to the side of the United States so that they can unilaterally impose sanctions and try to topple regimes in other countries. This is how they delegitimize other governments. Motherfucker, it's not up to you to delegitimize anyone. Venezuela, Syria, Iran, any country in the world does not need your fucking approval. You know why? Because it's not your fucking country. No one appointed you the grand juror of who is legitimate and who is illegitimate. You're not even the fucking UN. Like, what's the point of having the UN and the Security Council and all these different organs of the United Nations if you're just going to go and fucking undermine them and play world police? Unbelievable.
About is his removal from power. Are we open Maduro stepping down? And yet you've said as recently as a week ago that the only thing we want to talk to Maduro about is his removal from power.
Go and fuck yourself. There's nothing to talk about. Oh, the only thing we want to talk about to Maduro is his removal of power. Who said we're having a debate, you asshole? Who said there is a discussion to be had? What do you think, this is a fucking negotiation? They do the same shit in Syria, right? What does Mike Pompeo go and do? He says, look, here are some new sanctions that are going to famish the Syrian people, deprive them of medical equipment, make sure that they starve and die in the most disgusting and painful way, and we're going to commit economic terrorism against the Syrians. And the only way we're going to remove these sanctions is if Bashar al-Assad agrees to step down. What? First of all, these sanctions are going to kill civilians. They're not going to do anything to Bashar al-Assad. He's unaffected. Just like Maduro is not going to face the full brunt. Maduro is not going to face the full brunt and the full force of these sanctions. It's always civilians who suffer. Always. Not just in war, but also under economic siege. That's number one. Number two, who the fuck are you to tell anyone in another country to step down? Who are you? What, you're white? That's it? Who are you? Mind your fucking business. That's not a democratic solution. That's not a peaceful transition. That is a threat. You are literally murdering people and holding them hostage, right? Don't they always tell you this? Like, oh man, the Arabs, they're using human shields. Oh, the Arabs, they take hostages and they're terrorists. What are you doing? You're also literally holding hostage the people of Venezuela, depriving them of food and equipment and medical supplies and infrastructure so that you can get rid of Maduro. You're holding them hostage. You are literally fucking executing them. And doing the same thing with the Syrian population and the population of Iran. You're killing civilians, holding them hostage, depriving them of much needed supplies to accomplish your political aims. You are a fucking terrorist, de facto. There is no bigger terrorist. We're not talking about a group or a room of people. We're talking about a fucking civilian population. Unreal. Unreal. I don't care if it was the most eloquent and kindly written letter in the world. It's not your business. Whether we're talking about sanctions or asking pretty please. None of your business. Not your place to demand anything.
Are we open, the United States of America, to a discussion with Maduro in which he stays in power as a transition to an election that is actually free and fair? Because frankly, even if he's not in power, there's no guarantee that his allies couldn't rig an election. So why aren't we open to that as a possible path forward?
Once again, they just can't quit. Once again, I don't care what you are open to. It's none of your goddamn business. I just don't understand how much more I can dumb this down. Mind your goddamn business. They're acting like some adult talking about a dog or a child or someone under their submission. What is wrong with you? The Venezuelan people are not at your disposal, okay? The Venezuelan people will not submit themselves to you or what you are open to. Fucking arrogant white colonialist pieces of shit. Really, no fucking different from the people who are running the Congo, the Belgians running the Congo, or the British, or in Egypt, or the French in the Middle East. No fucking different. None. And look how out in the open. Are we open to this? Who asked you? Oh my God. The fucking arrogance. This is white supremacy in the flesh. This is imperialist mentality right there out in the open. These devils in suits deciding the fate of other people that they have nothing to do with.
Because we do not believe that a free election in Venezuela is possible with Maduro in power, in control of the army, in control of the police, in control of the colectivo gangs, with 2,000 or 3,000 Cuban intelligence agents. We do not see that that is a possibility of a free election.
I would say Guaido doesn't share that view because his preconditions for taking part in the elections did not require the removal of Maduro. And it is also not clear that even without Maduro, there could be a free and fair election. And so I think this is just a prescription to get stuck in a downwards spiral of American policy from which we cannot remove ourselves. We've got to be more nimble, more creative, more open to solutions by which we could get to an election, even with Maduro there.
Once again, man, you're not listening. The elections that take place in another country are up to the people from that country, okay? I really don't know how much more I can simplify this. How can you advocate for democracy, yet you don't want people in their own country to decide their fate, to self-govern? Who asked you to supervise? Who asked you to take a supervisor role or an advisory role in this issue? No one asked you. You have no business whatsoever. I can't believe I have to break this down. As
a transition. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I could, could I respond for just a few seconds?
Go ahead.
You know, we presented this framework for a democratic transition precisely to show what we would like to see happen. And in the framework, both sides, the Chavistas and the opposition in the National Assembly, elect a transitional government. Each side has veto power. Guaido and Maduro would not participate in the transitional election. Both could run for president in a future free presidential election. We thought we were putting out, and many countries who have looked at this have said, this is a positive formula, and we showed the way to the lifting of US sanctions. And I would just say again, just under 60 countries support Guaido. So the notion that we have done this alone and without international support, Senator, I would submit is not accurate.
Ridiculous. Completely obscene. I mean, the irony in his last statement that, 60 other countries support us in this endeavor. What, there are only 60 countries in the world? That's not even half the countries in the world. So, I mean, you just admitted to us that most countries in the world do not support what you're doing. You just admitted to us most countries in the world don't support what you're doing. Maybe there's a reason for that. Second of all, I don't care if every single country in the world supports what you're doing. You're not the fucking people in charge of Venezuela. Mind your goddamn business. I really don't understand why this is even something we have to break down. How insulting. The arrogance, the sheer arrogance of these imperialist pigs. Really. Oh God, how much I would love. I would love to just see Maduro sitting there and telling Americans how their elections are going to be run. Could you imagine that? How they would lose it. When officials in Iran or in the global south call out the police brutality that is taking place in America and has been taking place for eons, people are like, oh, who are you to talk about that? Look at your own country's repressive regimes. Oh, yet the United States, that has no democracy, that disenfranchises voters, that marginalizes people of color, marginalizes African Americans, is built on slavery, built on genocide, doesn't even have a democratic apparatus, is now going to come and lecture other countries on how to run their governments? So when it suits you, you tell XYZ to mind their business. And at the same time, even though you're a complete absolute hypocrite, you're going to go and lecture other countries on how to run themselves and impose brutal, crippling sanctions on them and murder their civilian population, and then encircle them with your army, put troops on the Colombian border, bring the Navy in. Look at how much money they waste. Look at how much money they spend on these military adventures. Instead of building hospitals for you, buying you PPE, giving everybody healthcare, giving them UBI during this eviction crisis, pandemic, recession. Unbelievable. This shows you how disgusting and evil these people are. This is the pinnacle of evil. This is white supremacy right there in the flesh. This is imperialism. They're so callous and brazen and shameless. This is the second hearing this week in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Here, just openly admitting that they tried to overthrow Maduro last year in April. And then again this year with the Silver Corps coup. And that they're imposing sanctions as a means to overthrow and topple the Maduro government, which is explicitly forbidden by international law. International laws that these countries wrote themselves, these Western powers. This is a violation of the UN Charter. It's a violation of human rights. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. And yet here they sit, just right there, callously, brazenly talking about it as if it's nothing. As if it's some kind of baseball game or, just, yeah, whatever, man. We tried that coup and it didn't work. And, oh, that's such a shame. Like, what can we do to make sure that we can have a puppet government in Venezuela? Huh? How can we get this puppet in there, which nobody's ever heard of? Unreal. And then in the first hearing, Mike Pompeo and Lindsey Graham just gloating about how brutal these sanctions are against Syria and talking about Assad's son. Motherfucker, who gives a shit about Assad's son? The dude is 18. Motherfucker was probably in diapers wait, hold on a second. When his dad become president? 2000, 2001? Yeah. The motherfucker was in diapers. What the fuck does his son have to do anything? You're killing the Syrian people. Syrian people don't have access to medicine and food and foreign currency and medical equipment and parts for repair. You are strangling them. Fuck Assad's son. And they're gloating. They're happy. They're proud. I love how you implemented that very fast. And is there more coming? Yes, Senator. Yes, there's more. Oh, how fucking generous, man. I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait. I really can't wait. Bread shortages and, burning our wheat. Yeah, I can't fucking wait. Slimly. How humanitarian of you, you fucking cunts. And then on top of it, they talk about striking this oil deal with the Kurds. Once again, brazenly admitting that they are stealing our resources. You didn't get permission to extract that oil from the Syrian government. You didn't get permission from the people living there. You are illegally occupying that land. Kurds are not a majority in that area. It's not up to them to decide who gets that oil. I'm also a minority in Syria. Did you ask me, motherfucker? I thought you care about democracy and equal representation. Where's my representation, bitch? You didn't fucking ask me. You didn't ask the Syrians if they're okay with this. You stealing that oil. And they don't care. Just openly admit it. Subsidizing it too. Not just letting an American corporation come in with protection from the US military. But on top of it, giving this private corporation the infrastructure, the tools, the refineries to get the job done. So subsidizing this theft. That's 2 hearings this week where they're openly admitting to you their aggressive, disgusting, predatory foreign policy. And you expect people to sit around and just shut up and accept this shit? Motherfuck you, man. You making us worse off. We ain't better off. We're worse off. How the fuck you want to rebuild Syria if you're taking $30 million a day away from us? 30 fucking million a day, man. That's how much the oil produces. That's how much the oil accounts for. Now it's going to some private corporation in Delaware. You pieces of shit. Allah la yuwaffiqkum ya awladin al-kalb. And of course, you already know why they're after Venezuela. It ain't democracy. It's because Venezuela is the largest oil reserves on the planet. And John Bolton openly admitted on Fox, this would be great for our companies. Yeah, I bet it would. Fuck these pigs, man. The United States is one of the least democratic places on the face of the planet. Even without looking at the foreign policy, right? Just you look internally at how minorities are treated, how the natives were massacred, the slavery, the modern slavery, the mass incarceration, voter disenfranchisement, violation of First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, tear gassing protesters, the lobbyists in government, corporations controlling everything that happens. I've never seen a more undemocratic society, a more undemocratic state. And then they got the stones to come and lecture us about democracy. Motherfucker, who are you, first of all? I don't care even if you had the best democracy. Even if you had the perfect democracy, it's not your fucking business. None. It's not your business. And same goes for the UK and all the other Western powers. But they're just lapdogs now. They're just lapdogs for the US. Same shit, same gang. You know, we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of white men coming onto our land, planting their flag, bringing with them death, destruction, oppression, occupation, thieving, stealing our resources, plundering our land, taking it all the way back so that they may enrich themselves and build up their countries and enrich their people and benefit from what is ours and massacre these indigenous populations, massacre us, brutalize us, and then enslave people and ship them off and make them physically, literally build their countries on top of it, on top of stealing resources. And now they're doing the same shit, except they just changed the branding. They don't call it colonialism anymore. They don't present themselves as empires anymore. Oh no, now it's just the United States is a country, just like hundreds of other countries, and they're only interested in spreading democracy. That's all. It's all in the name of humanitarianism, democracy, equality. But it's the same fucking shit. Different branding, same shit, same oppression, same power dynamic, same kind of submissive, dominant relationship with these exact same countries in the global south. Nothing changed.